Welcome to Dev Better, the show where we talk about the organizational and software engineering challenges we have encountered as a software consulting firm. Today, we're talking about growing in tech without being technical. Breaking into tech is challenging. This rapidly expanding industry entices curious minds and go-getters, but the plethora of opportunities can be daunting. While the prospects are abundant, the vast majority of them require specialized technical understanding. Without a technical background, navigating a career in the technology space can be difficult. Combine all this confusion with a highly competitive job market, and breaking into tech seems almost impossible. However, there are vital non-technical roles in the technology world. On this episode, our Director of Marketing is here to explain how to transfer into technology, the learning curves, and how to carve a satisfying career path. Alyssa is the Marketing Director at 7Factor, but she came to us fresh from college with a background in public relations. To say she was fresh to the industry and the world we work in is an understatement. But Alyssa has really grown and flourished during her time here and is an essential member of our leadership team. Here's how Alyssa became a leader at a technology company without completing a single line of code. So explain to us how you landed at 7Factor. I actually remember you coming in and interviewing for your internship. Talk to us a little bit about why you chose us.
Yeah, that day is also ingrained in my brain as well. So I was a public relations major entering my junior year at college, and everyone was starting to play that game of, I have 4 internships. I have 3. All these entry-level jobs, you have to have 5 years of experience. So I was feeling behind the curve. So I made my resume, and I started just spraying and praying, looking to get any kind of marketing, public relations experience. I had never been interested in tech. It seemed daunting to me. It seemed like you were either deemed like you were going to be in tech from a really young age, and it was your interest, or it wasn't for you at all. And I had never dived in. But when I was looking through all these internships and where I wanted to go, I really just wanted to be somewhere where I felt like I had growth opportunities, where I was going to be planted somewhere and was going to be watered and cultivated. And I just remembered thinking that that's what's most important to me when I walk through a door. I want to feel like it's not just going to be an internship, big program, and then 3 months and you're out.
Yeah.
So walking through the door at 7Factor, I was very intimidated. I thought I was going to see rows of people, headphones on, being very serious, typing away, someone yelling that something's broken. I didn't know anything about software.
That's definitely happened before, by the way.
But when I walked in, it was probably the opposite. I walked into you and a group of engineers sitting with no computers in sight, talking through a problem on a whiteboard and collaborating and asking questions, raising hands. What if we did it this way? What if we did it that way? That's a good point. And it seemed like I just walked into this moment that happened all the time. And I had never seen anything like it. And I thought, maybe this is somewhere that I really want to be. And throughout talking with you during that interview, I was really inspired because it seemed like you even thought you had something to learn from me, that we were all bringing something to the table and that we were all going to collaborate on something.
Yep.
And I just was so excited to get started.
Yeah, that's one of the key points of any good software engineering team is the collaboration piece. And I think a lot of folks take that for granted. So that's a really good point that we should think about, right? All right. So we know that things didn't just fall in place, right? You weren't like immediately elevated to position of marketing director in, 20 minutes. It took a while for things to fall in place. Talk to us a little bit about your journey after joining us and learning how crazy developers can be and but also how collaborative it can be. How did our culture impact your growth here?
Yeah. So there was definitely 7Factor has grown leaps and bounds and myself along with it. It's definitely hasn't been a linear road, and it's definitely had high peaks and high lows, and there's been some bumps, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I've definitely learned a lot along the way. I think one of the biggest growing pains, or one thing that I had to understand from the beginning, is learning and growth takes time. I had to sit and soak in the culture for a minute. And that's something I see in marketing across the board, is just this kind of oversaturation of understanding really quick. And you have a blog post that you turn into 18 LinkedIn posts and all of this kind of, we can do things really quick. We can turn around content. We can say a lot of things without saying a lot. And I don't like that at all. And that's not how my growth here happened. I think I came in at a great time when 7Factor was also really small to see this growth and trajectory, but anyone out there, you need to understand things, because you have to understand that secret sauce when you're putting that message out. So if I call it word salad, when there's just a lot of words being said and you kind of read it and you don't really understand the viewpoint or what's actually being said, that's all out there now. And that's not how I wanted to present 7-Factor. So I had to sit and understand what was going on, what our teams were doing, how they like to work together. I really just had to absorb the culture.
I think in a world where ChatGPT can write a marketing message in about 3.2 seconds, we're seeing a lot of that nonsense now coming to fruition. I mean, I already get at least 5,000 emails a day from random people that I don't know that I'm 100% sure it's bot, right? You read it, it's templated. Sometimes they even miss and you'll have the tag like % first name, end %, nonsense like that. So I think one of the things that I was most impressed about you when you came in is you really gravitated more towards the message of the people, which as a software engineering consulting firm, we aren't solving a radical problem in the world. We're here to provide excellent talent that can walk into any situation, learn any framework, and execute on a tough problem without having to spend days, years, months learning something, right? We hire genuine problem solvers. And I think you also fit that mold, because when you came in, as you just said, it's not about the spray and pray method. It's about really learning more about what our people bring to the table. Talk a little bit about your strategy that you sort of grew into, where it's more about marketing what our folks are doing and less about spraying a bunch of nonsense on the internet.
I think one of the most important things coming in is understanding your market. I love competitor analysis. I think it's fun to fill yourself with what's everyone else doing, answering that curiosity a little bit. So when I looked at everyone else, you have to have, what are you bringing to the table that's a differentiator? What is different about what you're doing? And for me, when I came into 7-Factor, it was clearly apparent. There's so many product companies, even services companies, they're offering a simple service. 7-Factors is really loose and really broad, because our product is people. And that was something weird to kind of get my head around, but I think it worked out for the best. And that's exactly what I really enjoyed marketing. So we can't kind of all lump together. We build our roads of what our products are, what we're delivering, what our solutions are to our clients. But what's really important and what's our differentiator and our secret sauce is the people that we're staffing on these teams. And I really wanted to pull back that curtain with 7-Factor, because all these websites, it's all this copy pasta, it's all these stock photos, it's all this words that you don't even know if anything's written by AI anymore, because that tone of voice is almost becoming the industry standard.
Right.
And I really don't like that. It's you have to have the human factor, which is something we talk about that. So going with that and really diving into what are people actually doing. They're all very different, but what are their commonalities? What makes someone fit into our culture?
Right.
That's what our clients appreciate. That's the differentiator. How do I market that?
And that's similar to like my own sales process, right? When I was manning the ship all by myself, the conversations I was having at those levels were more human. It was focused on what value could, at the time, I bring to the table, or my folks that I had just freshly hired out of code school. What value could we bring to the table through their unique skill sets? And again, as a services firm, you have to be the best of the best, right? You've got to come in swinging with people that know what they're doing and that understand how to build software correctly and quickly and in a high quality manner. And I think that was a thing that you gravitated towards, is that also that quality message. And again, that's also pervasive in what you just mentioned, is that I would rather send one post in LinkedIn a day that's really good versus 5 that mean nothing. And that's kind of counterculture in marketing right now. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you definitely have to, I call it finding your flow. You have to find your flow with your audience and really see how much traction are you getting. Our biggest presence is on LinkedIn. That seems to be where we gravitate towards. Experimentation is also really good. We definitely wanted to see where our message was being absorbed. But definitely on LinkedIn, there's something called like the golden rule, and LinkedIn's engagements and algorithms are a beast all in its own. We could talk about that for a whole different episode. But the sheer amount of what you're posting, there's not that much effectiveness in it, especially if you're saying the same thing over and over again. It's all about if people are latching on to what you're saying and starting a conversation based off of it. So if there's just a lot of jargon out there that no one's interacting with, LinkedIn also doesn't think it's important, so it's not going to put it across people's screens. So really, you just want to spend time making sure that you stand by what's in your message and that it's going to engage with other people. LinkedIn likes to connect people, likes to see people interact. So that was something that I really wanted to start conversations and have, bring to the table topics that I didn't see being talked about that we think are really important and have people talk about it.
And that's why we like LinkedIn. 'Cause it's the opposite of the spray and pray method.
Yes.
So let's talk about imposter syndrome, right? That is a thing that's near and dear to my heart, being a first-time CEO and trying to figure out how to run a company, right? It's been a fun ride. How has that impacted you, and how have you overcome it?
Not at all. Why do you ask? No, I'm kidding. I want to start off talking about imposter syndrome by saying I didn't know what it was. And actually through working here, I discovered it by how involved we are in our communities and going to in-person events. This word kind of was on a lot of us and we didn't understand what it meant, this kind of internal pressure. I've always been a go-getter. I've always had that fire under my butt. And I just thought that was my own pressure to succeed. And I would see it amp up in situations and not know what it meant. But through learning more about it, it's kind of been this whole, it's a common term now, but it wasn't a few years ago when I started. But it's imposter syndrome. We all have it. We all get nervous that we're not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. That was a big thing for me. But I think it obviously played a very, very big role in my time here. I think one of the hardest things was we scaled our marketing in a really effective way. I think you knew what you were doing. I don't think you knew what you were doing totally, but you did a really good job with it. I came in here as a pupil, ready to soak and absorb, and I had the trust in you and vice versa that that's what I was here to do because you saw that I could get there, so let's get you there. And I think with other smaller companies, a really great idea to scale your marketing is to bring in experts who are really good at what they do. So we scaled our team with seasoned professionals, contractors, someone who wasn't here full time. I was going to kind of be the head, but they were going to help me in these outlets. And really, I learned from them. They came in. They were definitely a culture fit for us. They're still here today. But that imposter syndrome of me growing throughout that and coming from being a doer and being like, yes, that's a great idea. You guys are really smart. Thank you. Let me go run with that. To kind of standing on my 2 feet and being like, I'm the one here in our culture every day. I'm starting to really get it. I'm growing. That was a really hard learning curve, especially when those parameters aren't really defined of like, hello, here's the meeting where I'm now the manager. We're just always working towards the same goal. So that was difficult. But I think what made that effective is I knew where I stood here. I knew that I was being supported. I knew that I was firmly planted in the position I was in. And the people we were working with were the same. They weren't like, why is Alyssa a manager now? They were like, we've seen that growth in you. You're doing an amazing job. It's, again, it all just goes back to culture. There, if I had a boss that I was afraid to talk to and there was a totem pole for me to climb, I wouldn't have had this journey. But that was definitely something that I had to overcome.
I think, right or wrong, being a software engineer for so long tempered my style a little bit because I have always been put in those situations, right? When I was at Danger, my first day, I walked in and my manager was Godfrey Imudia, a really cool dude from Nigeria. And my friend Sean Kern and Joe George and these other people that I worked with. Sid Holloway was my boss. He was fantastic. And it really was that, here's the source code. Go figure it out. There was no sitting down and spending hours reading the code with as a group. It was legitimately, here's your first ticket. You got a week to figure it out. And that was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a bad thing because you can put some undue pressure on yourself to succeed, especially bright young professionals like yourself and others that I've met. You can put too much pressure on yourself if you're not careful. But it is a good, I call it a crucible, right? There's pressure for you to grow. There's a lot of fire, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of blood, but you come out the other side a much better person if you've been given the opportunity to make mistakes in a padded room, right? Obviously, you can't make fatal mistakes And you have to know, and folks like yourself and very, again, smart, bright, young professionals typically can read the room and understand what a fatal mistake would be.
Yeah.
But being given that padded room helps you grow, and it allows you to make mistakes and fail. I've always said that you learn more from mistakes than you ever will from success. Like, success is great. I was a straight A kid in high school until I went to Georgia Tech, and I made a 1.6 my first semester and got kicked in the face.
Yeah.
So it's fine to fail in the right context. Talk about failure. How have you failed? And I know this is uncomfortable. How have you failed, and how has that made you better?
Yeah. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes. And I kind of want to go back to what you were talking about. Kind of all of this line, I keep talking about 7 factors culture, but it's really just watching and learning from our engineers. So engineers are always solving problems. They're always in the weeds trying to figure things out. And when they get those solutions, it might take a few tries. You know, we know estimations are garbage. Priorities shift, things change. We see, so learning from our engineers, I could really see them problem solving and being stressed, and for a whole day being like, I don't know the answer to this problem right now. I need to pull someone in and get help. Watching them work in their small teams of collaboration, working in a vacuum is something that we don't do, that I hate doing myself. That's where you're just siloing and you think that no one's really here to help me. This is my problem to solve. That's not baked into our culture.
Right.
So with that in mind and watching the engineers do that, I, applied that to my marketing department, to where when I failed, it felt like maybe it just wasn't all on me. I don't know if that's the best message, but we all come
It's not. It's definitely not.
But you know what I mean. And then again, talking through failures. A lot of times just owning up to things. We all, again, I had this psychological safety of, I know that I'm meant to be here, that I do a good job in my role. That doesn't mean I'm perfect every day.
Right.
And I think that's something that we all need to understand.
100%.
We've definitely given ourselves the space for experimentation, for trying new things to see, what sticks and what doesn't. And sometimes those things don't stick, but you're learning from that. And that's what happens with our engineers too. Like, we're polyglots, we're trying different things. Having the space to try is really important. And then again, when I failed, which I have, that's very true, mark it down. When we have failed, talking through it, being like, okay, why didn't this work? And it's not Alyssa failed, it's this didn't work.
Right.
That didn't come to fruition. It doesn't have a name on it. And me and you would talk through things like that. I would be like, hey, this campaign didn't do how I wanted it to do. Can we ideate on maybe why that happened?
Sure.
And coming out with, a solution in the end. So you got to spin your failures. There was never any true failure.
What are some key takeaways for someone who's walking into an industry that's perhaps a little scary, or that they're not certain, again, going back to imposter syndrome, they're not certain that they would sort of be up to snuff to entering that industry? You obviously walked into a very technical industry. We asked you to write code one time, right? During a lunch and learn. You wrote some Python, and it was awesome.
I was a team player about it.
That was great. But you're not on the ground coding every day, but you have to understand what these people do. What are some key takeaways you think for someone walking into an industry like that?
Yeah. So I think what I want to say on this is just own what you don't know. And that applies to me, and I think it applies to a lot of other people walking into a room, feeling that weight of, how am I going to figure this out? How is this actually going to work? Why am I here? What am I going to do here? Because I'm really overwhelmed and I'm really stressed. You have to lean on your peers. Like I said, I think I was a culture fit here. And if you're somewhere where you think, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I don't know how I'm going to excel, a leader has probably seen you and put you there to go through it because they know that you're going to be great on the other side. So first, have a little faith in yourself, and really just collaborate. Again, I watched our engineers do that. There's so much power in owning what you don't know. I made the mistake of thinking, I need to figure everything out. Well, I guess this is just my life now. I need to really study up. I need to be doing behind-the-scenes coding lessons. No. You need to know exactly enough to get the message across. So that collaboration of reaching out to an engineer. I collaborate on Slack with my engineers all the time. I literally say, hey, can I bother you for a second? Post in a general channel at engineers. Who can talk to me about ECS? Who can talk to me about Azure, blah, blah, blah. A lot of blah, blah, blahs. But there's so much power in saying, I don't know much about that. Can you tell me about that? Even if you're on a meeting and you just want to get through it and you think it might be embarrassing to not know something, you actually mentioned on that, I think I don't have the same understanding as you. Can you explain that to me? Will reap you so many more rewards and make you feel so much better and more secure than just sitting there hoping that, you can figure it out and not get noticed and fly under the radar, because you don't want to fly under the radar. You want to grow.
Right. And I think that brings a unique perspective to marketing, especially a product like ours that other folks perhaps wouldn't have. Obviously, you hire someone who's done services 100 times, and there's nothing wrong with this. You're going to fall back on the playbook of, well, what's our utilization rate? What's our NPS? How are we going to market this? How are we going to market that? What are your offerings? What are your 5 key points on each offering? And that is an effective strategy for a lot of companies. I think for us, we've taken a different approach, and by having you come in with no prior understanding of how we do this has been powerful for you, because it's given you're obviously a very smart individual. It's given you the ability to look at things from a lens that myself and other people would have looked at with some bias. And that doesn't work all the time, but it works for us very well because of, you mentioned, the culture fit and focusing on the fact that collaboration and working together and building padded walls where failing is safe has propelled you from an intern to a marketing director in very short order, right? Yeah. So awesome. Congratulations on that. I'm very excited that you've joined the team and that you continue to do amazing things for us.
Yeah.
Hiring people is hard. A software engineer, ex-software engineer, hiring non-technical people is also hard in a different way, to be frank with you. But I think that the culture of agile and Kanban-based software development provides a collaborative atmosphere that really trains people to be leaders in a different sense. It allows us to focus on, it's really more about the team's greater benefit than it is the individual's execution. And again, we have our fair share of superstars. Alyssa is one of them. We have people on our team that are amazing and do really good job at their target vertical. But the thing that I've loved the most about my experience with hiring Alyssa and empowering her to lead a team, which she has a full-time employee now, and she's starting to work with her contractors and trying to build this little marketing team that's doing amazing things for 7Factor. I'm most proud that she's able to do that underneath a cultural banner that allows her to succeed and to run as fast as she can without anybody holding her back. So the advice I would have for folks, if you're in a situation like myself and you're a non-technical person, or a technical person, do not be afraid to hire non-technical people. They're different and they don't think like you, but there's a lot that they can bring to the table that you don't think about. I know that's obvious, but perhaps there are some engineering leaders out there or people that have started their own company like mine that have never had experience hiring people in marketing or in sales or in other arenas that you're not comfortable walking in. And I would say, again, lean into your culture and lean into the idea that empowering other human beings is your job. And I promise you will find people that will just gravitate to that message, and they will grow on their own. They will grow in place. I'm very lucky and perhaps spoiled that Alyssa has grown where she was planted and become this amazing leader and this amazing member of our team.